Addicts, welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. In this video, we are going to be discussing wide receiver strategy. And we've already done our quarterback and running back strategy videos, now talking about the wide receiver position and what is ideal and optimal heading into this season. Now, this is going to vary based on your draft position and on your league settings too. If you play in a league where you only need to start 2 wide receivers versus one where you have to start 3 or more, obviously, that brings the value of the position up a little bit. We're discussing this based on the assumption of PPR. So if you're doing half PPR or standard, strategy changes just a little bit more towards running backs, but I think, especially in standard, but not as much in half PPR, the strategy is pretty much the same. Just wanted to point that out. But the ADP we're looking at here is from Fantasy Football Calculator. This is a 12-team PPR league as of 8/23. So we're releasing this a few days later, but ADP has been pretty steady over the course of the past couple weeks, hasn't changed too much. So I think this will still be relevant even if you're doing a draft next week or even in 2 weeks. But the strategy is going to be pretty much the same. So if you watched our running back video, you know that our plan with running backs is to make sure that we're trying to walk out with 2 running backs in this top 14 tier, which means that we're fading that upper echelon tier of Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, and Tyreek Hill. As I mentioned, Devontae Adams is the only receiver in this group that I'm willing to potentially take in punting the running back position, but it's unlikely that I'll do that unless, absolutely feel like I'm going to be able to nab, be able to get Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift without having to sacrifice the wide receiver 2 or 3, just to feel the room out. But other than that, it's going to be really hard for me to take a receiver in that position because I don't really care for the tier of running backs in the 3rd round. The James Conner, Le'Veon Bell, Chris Carson, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Leonard Fournette tier is not very enthused at really any of those guys. So I'd rather be taking receivers in that spot. So where this gets tricky and the strategy starts to change a little bit is if you have one of those first 3 to 4 picks. Because typically, if you're playing in a competitive league, most of the time, the last running back to fall was Aaron Jones or Austin Eckler, and they normally go right here at the 205. So if you are in any of these first 4 picks, you no longer have access to those running back ones, the top 14 guys that we have. And that makes this a little bit tricky. So we've done a couple mock drafts over the past 2 days where we experimented taking a quarterback or a tight end in this spot, and it actually worked out okay. But if Chris Godwin falls, I am okay with taking Chris Godwin in the back half of the 2nd round. I actually have Chris Godwin ranked above DeAndre Hopkins. So I'd be more than happy taking Chris Godwin here. And pretty much, there's almost no circumstance in standard leagues. When I say standard, I mean PPR, not tight end premium or super flex. In traditional formats, I'm pretty much guaranteed to take a wide receiver in the 3rd, regardless of what I do in the first 2 rounds, because I absolutely love DJ Moore, Allen Robinson, Kenny Golladay, and Odell Beckham Jr. I personally like DJ Moore the best of that group, but I'm fine with any of them. And if you guys have, a inclination towards one or the other, I'm not going to stop you. So pretty much in the 3rd round, it's wide receiver every time. And then the 4th and the 5th round is where I'll swap. So if I'm earlier in the 4th round, I might take a Jonathan Taylor. Whereas if I'm later in the 4th round and JT's already gone, I'm looking at guys like Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Juju sometimes falls, A.J. Brown I love a lot, DJ Chark, Tyler Lockett. And then if I do take a running back like Jonathan Taylor in the 4th, then I'm going to try to grab one of these guys, or Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, A.J. Green, Devontae Parker in the 5th and 6th. So essentially the strategy that I'm trying to do is I want 3 running backs in the first 6 rounds no matter what. If I don't get Dak Prescott, then my goal is to get 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers in the first 6 rounds. And if you guys are curious which ones I'm targeting specifically, my rankings will be listed in the description box and in the first comment. So click that link. You can access them for free. But really, the strategy is going to be the same regardless of whose rankings you're using. I use mine. They've won me plenty of championships, so I'm going to keep going with those. But essentially, like I said, if I take Dak Prescott, then it just means I'm going to have 3 wide receivers by round 7. If I end up, taking the early tight end or early quarterback, if I'm here in the first 4 rounds, then same strategy. 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers by round 7. And if I don't do a quarterback or tight end in the first 6 rounds, then it's 3 running backs or 3 wide receivers by round 6, and probably another receiver in round 7. Again, we kind of break this down into thirds because I feel like the draft strategy is going to be the same between pick 1 through 4, same between 5 and 8, and same between 9 and 12, with a little bit of bleed over on the end just based on the fact that ADP doesn't necessarily dictate how your league goes. If I'm in this first 4, that's where I'm willing to do 2 wide receivers in round 2 and 3. Because if I can get Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson, I'm okay with doing that. If Chris Godwin is gone, I'm probably going to either do George Kittle, Travis Kelce, or Lamar Jackson here and just say screw it. Because although I really like DJ Moore and Allen Robinson, I feel like I really only need one of them because of the receivers I can get in the 4th round. So if you're early here, 2nd round is kind of dictated by what the rest of your league mates do. If Aaron Jones falls, then take Aaron Jones and then hit 3 receivers back to back. Or at least 2 plus a DeAndre Swift in the 5th round. But again, the strategy is follow the tiers and try to get 3 running backs and 3 receivers in the first 7 rounds. Once we get to 7th round onwards, this is where it starts to get really interesting for receiver. So in the 7th round, I like Michael Gallup. Brandon Cooks is interesting to me. I like Marvin Jones. I'm not really a big fan of Deontay Johnson. I think Deebo Samuel was a trap. Tyler Boyd, I'm not very that high on. Jamison Crowder, he'll probably have a decent production in PPR, but I don't think it gives you a really high weekly ceiling. Emmanuel Sanders is going to be inconsistent, so you start to see where things get a little murky at receiver. So in terms of guys that I like, I'm probably going to end up reaching on the people that I actually like. I like Jalen Reagor a lot. I think Christian Kirk is a little bit underrated. Sterling Shepard is a bit underrated. I like Darius Slayton. Brandon Ayuk, you could make an argument for a round or 2 earlier. So basically, if I take receivers in these rounds, they're normally going to be guys I'm probably end up reaching on a little bit, but just because I don't really care for some of the guys that are going based on ADP. But normally by this spot, I'm looking at taking like a Matt Ryan type. And you could even make an argument to take a guy like Tyler Higbee, but probably not looking at tight end here. So typically, I've taken Marvin Jones. That's a guy that I like. Michael Gallup. Jarvis Landry, another guy, if he falls, like right now he's going to the end of the 7th round. I do think the hip injury that he sustained could end up limiting his upside in the early part of the year, but I still like him a lot at his ADP. He's always undervalued, and I think that is going to be a much improved team this year. So basically, once I get past my first 7 picks, my goal is to then grab probably 2, if not 3 more receivers to round it out between rounds 8 and 11, because I'm really going to start hammering on the high upside running back and tight ends once we get to round 11. So I really want to be done drafting receivers probably by about round 10. So if you have 5 or 6 receivers by round 10, that's normally when I'll call it quits, because I'm not really interested in drafting Allen Lazard or Golden Tate. Not really that interested in drafting Mike Williams or N'Keal Harry or Brashad Perriman. The one receiver, pretty much the only receiver, and he's not even listed on the board here, that I'm interested in taking late. Oh, no, here he is. Round 16, Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell is the only lottery ticket receiver I'm looking at this year. And because he's going so late, if you only get 5 receivers in the first 10 rounds, just make sure you walk out of your draft with Paris Campbell and thank me later. But pretty much everyone else here, I'm not really that interested in a redraft league. They're just roster clogs because someone's going to emerge that isn't even on this list that you'll be able to waiver in the coming weeks. But that is essentially the strategy, and it meshes really nicely with the running back strategy as well. So we're trying to make sure we get 3 guys in the first 7 rounds, grab 2 or 3 more between rounds 8 and 10, most likely Marvin Jones and Jalen Reagor, but potentially Darius Slayton, Jarvis Landry, or Christian Kirk, and then make sure you grab Paris Campbell before you go. So walk out of the draft with 6 wide receivers if you have enough bench spots to support it, and that's pretty much the strategy. So let me know what you guys think. Again, my rankings will be in the comment section and in the description box. We've posted our My Guys, so you can see who we're going out of our way to target. AJ Green is the only one that I'm wavering on right now. If he doesn't come back soon from that hamstring injury, then he's going to fall off that list. We'll add somebody else, but keep you guys posted on that one. But other than that, pretty much set with our strategy. with a couple weeks to go before the season. So thank you guys for watching. Hit that subscribe button for more videos like this one, and I'll see you guys in the next video.